Now we're going to talk about tying our horse to a fence. So with this fence here, all right, there's, again, just like putting on the halter, walking the horse, really anything with the horse is wrong and a right way to do it. And most of it has to do with safety. Okay, I want to make sure that you and your horse is going to be safe. Tying to a fence, the main thing is you want to make sure they're tied to something sturdy, right? Something that they can't pull down, they can't break, to injure themselves, anything like that. So the first thing I'm going to do when I'm looking at a fence is find a nice sturdy place to tie them. All right, you can tie them on a vertical post, you can tie them on a horizontal post. It doesn't really matter. You can tie it both ways. Out of habit, I typically just tie on a vertical post, but you don't always have one. I'm typically going to find the sturdiest post, right, in that area. The big one here is nice and sturdy, but it's kind of in the way, so I'm not going to tie to that. This, even though it does move a little bit, it's bolted into the ground, into the concrete. If my horse pulls back, she's not going to break this pullback on it. What I don't want to do is I don't want to tie my horse to the paneling. Okay, they're tied to this. She pulls back. It's not going to take much pressure from her, and that's going to snap. All right, best case scenario, your horse is loose and free, and you got to go chase her down. Worst case scenario, pulls it back, breaks it, and then lunges forward and punctures herself, or even pulls some of the paneling with her. Even the sucker rod, even though this is real thick stuff, I don't even like to tie to it. It's not that she's going to break the rod. I'm more concerned she's going to kind of break the weld, pull some of the fencing with her. So just make sure you're tying to something sturdy. Some of the warnings I also give is don't tie to a barbed wire fence. Even the corner posts, H-braces, those are nice and sturdy, and if I had to tie one, I would tie to those, but I'm still not a huge fan tying to barbed wire just because it is barbed wire. If something happens, they pull on it, especially if they're tied to the barbed wire strands. It does not take a whole lot of tension to actually break those, especially if it's being pulled sideways. And so if it breaks and it can wrap around and kind of has a springing action, I've even seen it kind of wrap around my horse's legs and cause some cuts and things like that. So try to avoid tying to any fence that a horse may pull down. Even if it's a well-trained horse, I try to avoid that. I know they're not going to pull back or anything. I'm still trying to avoid them, tied to anything not sturdy that they can't break. Okay. When I tie my horse to the fence, in addition to a sturdy fence, I am looking to make sure I tie the correct knot. We have to know some knots, kind of almost have to be Boy Scouts to tie some correct knots. So that way, again, we're not causing any damage, potential injury to our horse. The knot we're going to tie to the fence needs to be a quick release knot. Okay, that way, if I'm in an emergency situation, all I have to do is pull and my horse will be untied in an instant. There's 100 different types of quick release knots out there. I'm going to show you a couple of them. Ones that I like. There's pros and cons to them. None of them are perfect in my opinion. But the main, the common denominator in all of them is that it's quick release. I can get my horse untied in a quick fashion. Okay. Point out is I want to make sure I'm not tying my horse too loose from the fence where I got too much lead rope hanging down, where she can move around, or if you have an anxious horse starts pawing a lot, she's not going to get her leg caught in this, hurt herself. I also want to make sure she's not tied too tightly to the fence. Okay, I don't want to restrict all of her freedom and she can't move around. You can even tell just from me holding that she doesn't like it. So I want to make sure it's a good happy medium. I typically say a good arm's length. Now I say Riley Morrow's arm's length. Okay, I've got longer arms than some have longer than me, but a good distance to where my horse is going to have some freedom walking around, not feel too restricted, but I don't want too much freedom where she can move around and get into things and hurt herself. Okay, so there's a couple different style of knots, and I'm going to teach the one that I prefer first. The one that I prefer students to know tying a knot. Several different names for it. The one that I was taught is called a thief knot. Again, there's pros and cons to all these. I prefer some over others. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that arm's length. I'm going to make a loop just like that. Okay, I want the top strand going to my horse's halter. Okay, and the bottom strand going away with the lead rope. Okay, I'm going to take that loop and I'm going to wrap around my post just like that. Okay, careful not to pull too much and take care of some of that arm's length, that freedom away from your horse. Okay, from here, all right, top strand to my horse, bottom strand away. I'm going to reach over my top strand, grab the bottom strand, come up, make another loop, and go through. Okay, from here, I like to kind of pull down some of that slack. Now I'm going to reach under my top strand, grab the bottom strand again, make another loop, and through. Okay, right there, that's my knot. Now I have a lot of extra lead rope. I can do what we call a daisy chain, just make another loop and through, just like that. Okay, this is called a thief knot because in a emergency situation, I can get my horse tied real quickly. I like to talk about, if you're in the Wild West robbing a bank, thief knot, bank robber comes out, needs to get his horse untied real fast. All I have to do is grab the tail and pull. When I pull nice and hard and fast, my horse is untied in an instant. All right. I'm gonna go through it nice and slow so that way you can kind of see it. But again, top strand to my horse, bottom strand away, gonna wrap around. Just like that. Reach over the top, make a loop and through, reach under, make a loop and through. Okay. My advice here is don't make your loops too big. Okay. But also don't make them too small. Okay. I always say kind of like a fist size. I've got big hands, so a big fist size. I make another loop and through, and then I can take my extra, make a daisy chain. Now, some horses are smart enough, they learn if they grab the tail of this, you can see this is supposed to have a little rubber strap, it means the horse has grabbed it quite a bit. They learn if they grab that tail and they just start playing with it and they start pulling, they can eventually get themselves loose. Okay, so there is a lock that you can do for this. Okay, so I'm going to tie my knot. So the lock is really simple. All that does is you just take your tail and you go through your last loop. That way, if you got a horse tugging on that tail, they're not going to get themselves untied. Okay? I don't care if you use the tail. I don't care, if you use it all the time. What I care about is knowing what it looks like, what the lock looks like. So that way, if someone else's horses, pulling back needs to be untied, or you do it yourself, you know what it looks like, so you can come through, unlock it, and pull and get your horse untied. Okay. This is my preferred knot. Again, there are some wrong things about it. There are some wrong ways to tie it. A lot of students tend to find the flaws with it. But what I like about this is when I pull completely, I'm 100% loose from the fence when I do it. Okay. Another knot that, for my class purposes, I don't require my students to learn it, but is a very common knot people tie. They wrap around like this. There's a couple of different versions of this. Wrap around, just take that through there, pull it tight, and then I can daisy chain just like the other one through. Okay, real similar to the other one. Again, the main difference is it's a quick release knot. What I dislike about this one is when I pull hard, I'm still wrapped around the post. I have seen horses pulling back, you untie them real fast, and this ends up half hitching on itself, tying another knot. And so I prefer the other way, the thief knot, because when I untie it, I'm completely free from the fence right away. Again, there are some other flaws to it, but I do prefer pulling and being completely disconnected from the fence. Okay, so one more time, I'm going to tie this one nice and slow. Right there. Okay, sometimes I like to just pull a little extra slack. Now I give my horse a little bit of freedom. But I've already kind of cinched up that knot just in case she pulls back. She doesn't cinch it up too much. If my loops are too big, she pulls hard, it wraps around itself a little bit. Makes it harder to undo. So again, that's part of one of the flaws with this individual one.